Good morning. Very close to the camera, sorry. How is everyone? It's Thursday. All right, today we're going to do all of the little details. It's details day. So I've already told you a couple little places that we're going to do the details, but first we have to learn French knots. Good morning. So the way that I teach French knots, I haven't seen anyone else teach it this way. And I've been doing it for years, like I said, and it's the grid method with French knots. So at the top here, you have either your strands, so 1 to 6, and then over here you have wraps, or you can flip-flop them, and you can put your strands on the bottom here, 1 to 6, and your wraps on the top. So it just depends on what way you like doing it. For time's sake, I'm not going to do all 1 strand, 2 strands, 3 strands, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do 1, 3, and 6 because it gives you a good mix of this is the smallest you can go, this is the biggest you can go. So if you have time, I highly recommend doing the entire grid. So 1 strand, 2 strands, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and really experiment getting all of those, all those knots in there. 1, it's really great practice. And 2, it really shows you how big and small you can make them, and in the middle too. The other thing I like is that sometimes if you only have 3 strands of something, you can come back to your little grid chart and you can say, oh, I've only got 3 strands, but I want a knot that's the same size as this. But if I just make more wraps, then I can get the same size knot. Do you know what I mean? So you can kind of like compare. So let's do it like that. So we'll do 1 wrap, 2 wraps. It's all going to make sense in a minute, I promise you. And we've got 3 wraps. All right. And then up here, we have our strands, and that's how many strands we're going to use. So again, we have 1, and I said we're only going to do 1, 3, and 6. But if you have time, please, please, please do them all because it's so important. And if you want to, you can make little lines like a multiplication chart, Not necessary, but if you want to, you can do that. Okay, so I'm not going to zoom in as much as I normally do because you need both your hands for this. And if you don't have a hoop stand, you don't need a hoop stand. Okay, I'll also tell you when to pick your hoop up. So I don't think I've ever failed at teaching anyone French knots, but we'll see. We'll go slow, okay? I'm going to start with 3 strands because it's very easy to see for the tutorial. So we'll go 3 strands with 1 wrap, and then 2, and then 3. And I've already prepared everything. So we've got our 3 strands here. Okay. So what you're going to do is come up from the back like this. Okay. Pull it through. And you need to put a knot on the back. So if you're one of those people who don't knot, you need to have a knot for this one. Okay, so remember, we're only going to do 1 wrap. So you're going to take your thread in your left hand, and I'll show you the way to do it left-handed as well. And take your thread in the left hand and put your needle above it up here. Okay, and you're going to wrap it around 1 time. Now, you don't want it to be too tight to where you're like bending your needle or you're putting a lot of like pressure on your fingers or anything like that. You just want to wrap it loosely. And you're going to put it right back down, your needle, next to where you've just come up. Okay, so you should have something that looks like that. Now, we're not done yet, so don't pull it through and be like, oh, I did it. The thing that you really have to remember is to shimmy all of this right here down the shaft of your needle so that it's touching the fabric. And that's why we are still holding this, okay? So you're holding this and you're just going to push that down. So like shimmy it. Again, you're not doing it really tight, otherwise the needle won't go through the hole and it won't go through the wraps. Okay? So you should push it down, still hold on to this, and this is where you can pick up your hoop if you don't have a hoop stand, because you've got your thumb on the extra thread, so it's not going to make a knot on top of your knot before it goes down through the hole. And then you can also pick your hoop up so that you kind of you know, don't stab yourself in the leg or something as you're pushing your needle down. Because I've done that a lot of times. And you're just going to pull it through and don't let go with your thumb. Keep it until you're almost out, and then you can let go. And we did it. You did your first French knot. So let's try it again. We'll do it one more time, and then we will, let's just cut this off because it's going to get caught in my French knots. We'll do it one more time, and then I'll do it with my left hand so that you can see both ways, okay? So you're going to come up from the back, grab it with this one, yeah? Needle on top, one wrap around, just loose. Put it back down right next to. Now, the farther away you put it, the more chance you're going to have more like a knot with a line, and that's called a pistol stitch, and it will look like this. You're going to have like your knot here, and you're going to have your line like that, okay? So you want to try and get it like really close to it so like the knot goes around. Shimmy that thread down, hold it with your thumb, pull it down, and you did it again. So let's do it with our left hand, because I know we do have some left-handed people, and people don't often show with their left hand. So this is super clumsy, but it does work. Okay, I can do it. Okay, so you take it with your right hand, needle over top like this, do your wrap, put it down right next to it, shimmy that thread down, let's not get caught, and again, this is where you'd pick your hoop up, okay, push it through. This is where I normally stab myself because I can't figure out where the needle is, and pull it all the way through like that. Okay, are we good? Do we have it? Let's go down to 2 wraps because it's exactly the same. You do exactly the same. Nothing changes except you do 2 wraps. So we did our 1 wrap and now you do 2 wraps. Put that needle down, and again, you want to shimmy this down. Okay, so the biggest mistakes I always see are that people pull these too tight, either when they go around like this, they do this, and they pull it so tight, and then they're like, I can't get it right next to it. I can't get it. Okay, it's because you're too tight. You just need to wrap it loosely. And then the second mistake I always see is that people don't shimmy this down. And then what happens is that they pull it down like this. They're like, okay, I've got it. And they pull it down, and then they come out with something like that. And they're like, oh, I just can't do it. You can. You're just missing the critical step. It's the shimmy. You got to do the shimmy. Okay, so do your 2 wraps and shimmy that down. And it also kind of makes a nice, neat knot at the bottom. So hold it with your finger, thumb, same, yeah? Have we got 2 wraps? Now let's do 3. So exactly the same, 1, 2, 3. Put it right back down, shimmy that down. And you can tell the more wraps you get, the bigger your knot gets, okay? Now, there really isn't like an incorrect way as to how they're supposed to look. So if you have one that's a little bit looser than the other ones, then it's fine. Like, don't stress out. They all don't have to be uniform. And let's just zoom in a little bit there so you can really see what they're like. So we've got our 3 wraps, 2 wraps, and 1 wrap. And you can tell they're much bigger. I don't go more than 3 because what happens is you are stacking the thread on your needle. So if you do, here's 4, it starts to get a bit bigger. And let's just do 5 underneath of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you see how it all gets stacked like that? What happens is it starts to kind of topple over and it doesn't actually lay flat. Okay, so you can kind of see there. See how it's starting to, like, let's pull it tight, topple over, where these ones all lay kind of nice and neat like that. So if you want to have that almost like that cloud effect or something like that, you know, something where it's like big and fluffy and poofy, then keep doing wraps. You can do as many as you can fit on your needle, really. But for us, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Here's 10. But for us, I like to keep it. See, now you're starting to get into like the hungry caterpillar situation, you know, or even like a bouillon knot, which they look disgusting to me. Okay. Because I think they look like those maggots. Okay, let's hurry up and I'll bang out these next ones. I think bang out is like the word of the Stitchalong, you know? Now, when I do one strand, I tend to use a thinner needle. So this is what I use for 1, and this is what I use for all 6. And you can see that the shaft of the needle here, I'm sure there's a better word for that, but sorry, is thicker because it's making a hole for all 6 strands. Where this one here is thinner, it's going to make a hole for just 1 strand. So sometimes if you're having some problems with your stitches, or maybe your needle can't go through properly, have a little look at your needle and how big or small it is. And just by changing that, you can change the way you stitch. You can revolutionize your stitching. Okay, so here we've got 1 strand, 1 wrap, and really these are perfect for like the dot of an eye if you're doing lettering, if you want to have like a glimmer, like literally in someone's eye, if you're stitching like an actual eyeball. I always say like strawberries, like the little seeds on strawberries, anything that's really small like that, or if you want to fill it with like a lot of little texture. Hi, George. Then these French knots are super good for that because they're so tiny. And then we're into 3. 1, 2, 3. Now the other thing, another tip, you know, that I like to say is if your thread starts going like this, okay, it's because what you're doing is you're twisting your thread around and around and around, and you're twisting it. You're literally twisting it. Okay. And it does that a lot with any kind of repetitive movement in stitching. And what you're going to want to do is turn your hoop upside down and let your needle dangle on your thread. Okay. And you should see it spin. And what that is doing is basically untwisting the thread, all the twists that you've put in your thread, because you keep going round and round and round your needle, you know? So if you're ever having trouble or problems with that, then try doing that. And a good telltale is that if your thread starts to twist on itself. So there's that. So we've got 1 strand, 1 wrap, 2 wraps, and 3 wraps. Come on, just turn around. Now we're going to use these for the inside of our sunflower. We're also going to use them for the inside of the other flowers. So there's the blue one and then the pink/red one. And you can also kind of use them as filler things. So like in between elements where you kind of want a little bit something else. Like you just, maybe it's not big enough for a full blown leaf, but you're like, there's a bit of space there. I think I want to add something. French knots are always good. Or if you've got like a bouquet of flowers. Good morning. Something like that, you know? So now we've got all 6 strands. Same exact thing. And I'll actually show you the pistol stitch up here as well, because I showed you some incorrect ways. But yeah, if you've got time, please do all 1 strand, 2 strand, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's so beneficial. 1 for practice, and it's really great to see all the different size knots that you can get. I love that. So here we've got 6 strands and 3 wraps, and you can tell so much bigger. But when you use the grid, you can start to see that some knots are very similar. So like 1 strand and 3 wraps is very similar to 3 strands and 1 wrap. So if you've only got 3 strands, but you want to make a really, really tiny one, then just do 1 wrap and you'll find that you get the same size, you know, almost the same as this one and this one. Yeah. So there you go. And then we've got our pistol stitch. The pistol stitch is just like a French knot, but instead of going right next to it, you go a ways away. So you've got maybe just 1 wrap, okay? But instead of coming here, you're going to come up here. So you're going to end up with a knot on a stick, okay? Now, if you don't like the way that looks, you can always do a knot and then add a stick. If you're like, ew, I don't like the way that is. And you can do 1 wrap, 2 wraps, 3 wraps. But this just kind of combines the 2 of them together. So you only have to do like 1 motion. You know, you don't have to do 2 stitches. And you can do 2 wraps, 3 wraps. It's up to you, however big you want that knot to be. Okay? Do we have questions on French knots? I hope I didn't forget anything. I tried to kind of breeze through because it's simple. Very simple. But they're so nice to know because they're so useful. Okay. So where we're putting French knots, I'll point it out on the thing so that you can actually see what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to do French knots here. And the plan for this was to use the lighter. Let me see if I've got it on the, you know, in the drawn on. I've got so many papers here. Oh my goodness. There we are. So the plan was to do either the dark brown here and here, and then do a ring of light brown in the middle. So you're going to end up with like a circle of brown, and then like a ring. You know what I mean? So all of this here would be like a lighter color. And then all of this here would be the dark, light, dark. Or you can flip it if you feel like that's a bit too dark. If you want to do that, then you can flip it around the other way and do the light color like the same as the cornucopia, and that dark color like that. So the other places that you can put French knots are obviously here in the middle. I've got the yellow for that. So I planned on this nice bright yellow. Obviously you can use whatever color that you want to. And then I've also got French knots in here for this blue. And I think I used the pink color for the middle of that. But again, pick whatever color you like. So let's do a couple of those, and then we'll move on because we also have to do the stems here. Oh, let's move it so you can see. We've got the stems here. So the pumpkin stem, this pumpkin stem, the grapes stem, and this little squash stem. And for these, I have down as a split stitch. And then what I did is used a alternating color to do the little outline and the little like veins, you know, to show that it's like different. Like that, like there's 3 different sections. There's 2 different sections. So for Details Day, this is kind of where you make your own mark on the pattern. And you can kind of figure out what do you like best and you know, what suits your fancy. Or as my grandma would say, what turns you on? So So let's see here. I'm going to do 4 strands for these dark French knots because it's quite a big space here. And I don't want to be here forever doing like tiny little French knots. And that's another thing, is that sometimes you need to plan your threads and plan your stitches and the size of them based on the size of how big of a space you actually have to fill. Sometimes if you try and do, where's my thing? If we tried to fill it with these ones, oh my God, we'd be here forever. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do 4 strands, which isn't on here, but I'm going to show you a way that you can kind of have a look of the knot without committing to the knot. Okay? So you're going to do everything except pull your needle all the way through. And that way you can kind of see what it looks like without committing to, you know, I'm actually going to do it. So here we go. We've got 4 strands. Let's try 2 wraps. Put it right back down, shimmy that down, and then don't commit to your knot. Just leave it like that, okay? And then have a look. Is it a good size? Do you like it? Do you think it should be 3 wraps or 2 wraps? And if you don't like it, then just pull it out like that. A French knot is kind of a little bit difficult to undo. So the easiest way I've found to undo a French knot is to take your scissors, yeah, and pull the top off like that. So I've just like used my fingernails. You can also use tweezers, which I tell everyone to buy a set of tweezers. Please don't use those janky ones you use for like your nose hairs and stuff. Get some embroidery scissors. These are just Revlon. I think I bought them from Boots or from Sainsbury's. They're just regular ones, but I like the angled tips because you can really get in there and pull out all the stitches that you don't want. So what I like to do is pull them up like this, because on the back, if you've got a bunch of them all together, then you don't have these long pieces that you can snip. Okay? So on the back of this, they're going to be so concentrated and together. If you snip one, try and find like the actual thread to snip it, you're going to snip a lot of stuff. So what I like to do is pull it like this, and you can just snip that straight off. And then on the back, you can pull it out like that. And then it's gone. And you just go like that with your fabric, and it's like it was never there. Okay? That's the easiest way I've found to remove a French knot if you don't like it. I would do that sooner rather than later. So if you do a full one and you're like, ooh, I don't like that, just take it out and try something else. Or you can just not commit to your stitches like I just did. So have a little go and stick it in like that, and then just don't commit to it. Have a little look. So actually 4 strands, 3 wraps looks all right. I feel like it's quite big. I'm not going to be here for ages. And then you can, if you like it, buy it. And I like to keep mine quite close to the sunflower so it kind of overlaps a little bit. And that way I don't have to go back in and add more satin stitches or more French knots that are kind of outside of where I want them to go, you know? So, have you got any questions about French knots? I feel like when I do French knots, I talk so fast because I just want to get it done, but then have like actual time to stitch on the project. Do you know what I mean? I'm always like, okay, and then go. Okay, questions? People are like, whoa, chill. I didn't even drink all my coffee this morning. It got cold, and then I didn't want to drink it. The other thing I like the tweezers for is that because Jessie is a short-haired dog, we get these really short little Jessie hairs, and they're so hard to get out of everything. So I like to have that, especially if I'm doing like a custom hoop for someone. I can go through and like really pull out all those little hairs that get stuck, because even though I tend to do most of my stitching for like commissions, you know, when it's like going to actually go to someone else's house, in the other room, you just can't escape it. It like, I swear to God, they're like multiplying or something all the time. So yeah, if you've got questions about French knots or anything like that, then just shoot me a message and let me know if it's after the video. I tend to go in rings all the way around. Obviously, I'm not finished with the sunflower, okay? But I'll show you what I mean. So if I do, just pretend I did one whole ring around the entire outside, then we go in for a second ring. Jessie Sparkles, seriously. I always think, like, if I got an embroidery and it was just like filled with Jessie hairs, I'd be fuming. I'd be like, oh my God, why is there hair all over this? So I always have to be a little bit careful. And if you're thinking, just take a lint roller and lint roll it, I would not recommend that, because the more times that you do the sticky stuff on your embroidery, because these are cotton threads, they will start to like fray. Do you know what I mean? So they'll start to get fuzzy, and you really don't want that on your final embroidery. So I tend to stick with the tweezers and try and get what I can off. But yeah, so as you go around, I just try and keep them quite close together. And if you find that you've got a little gap, you can always put another one back in there. Like, don't be afraid to like jump around or go, you know, even like up through a French knot, or use less wraps if you feel like that knot's going to be too big in that area. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes if you're doing really small knots or even really big knots, and you've just got a small piece of fabric showing, especially if you've got dark color like I'm working with, yeah, just use a knot that's got less wraps. Make it a little bit smaller. And honestly, like, you will not be able to tell. So I've done kind of like a little bit of that ring, okay? And then we're going to go straight for, I knew there was a knot back there. I knew it. We can go straight in with this one. I'll do all 6 strands and maybe 1 or 2 wraps, and we can see if it makes a big difference or not. And someone said that my cornucopia looked really good, and thank you very much. I really like how it turned out. I kind of feel like it does look like a rustic cornucopia, like a rustic looking thing, you know? So this one's 6 strands. Let's do 2 wraps and see what that looks like, because that might be a good size. So I'm not going to finish this whole thing, because watching me do French knots is not very fun. And we'll go over to the stems in just a minute. And then I'll also show you kind of the last maybe 5 minutes, some extra little things that I like to add, little areas. Okay, so we've got that. And then we can do the middle part in the brown again. So it'll be a whole circle of brown in the middle. Okay, so just imagine. Use your imagination. Oh, I just love Details Day though. It always feels a little bit chaotic compared to the other days, because the other days we have like specific colors and specific things that we've used, you know, like it's clearly like we've all followed the same like pattern or tutorial or whatever. So it's kind of like, wow, she's really just saying, go for it. And like, yeah, I am. Literally, go for it. I think I planned with this one here, this darker color. You can use any of these greens if you want to. I feel like this color would be nice. And then maybe do some lines with that darker color. So let's do that. And sometimes I just feel like you know when you're happy with it, you know? Like, you know when you pick the right color, or you know when, like, ooh, I'm just going to use one last strand because that looks a little bit too chunky for me. So I like that. I like that you get to, like, add your own details and, like, kind of put your own finishing touches on your work, you know? Do you know what I mean? Because then it kind of turns into your work instead of just, oh, we all followed the same pattern and we all use the same colors. Okay, so we've got the split stitch. You can work it in lines, just like we did with the pumpkin, or you can work it in, you can work it in horizontal lines, or you can work it in vertical lines. Both are okay. You can do a little outline if you'd rather and not fill it in. I might actually flip this and use this color as the outline and then do the darker color as the fill. I feel like that might look really cool. Have a little outline of this. But yeah, don't be afraid to like use all the colors. Because I did pick a lot of colors and I did it on purpose so that we could have a nice big mix of autumnal things. So yeah, I'll ask again, have you got any questions? Are we all good? Is there any parts where you're like, oh, you've definitely missed something? Like, how do you do that part, or how do you do this part? No shame here. I'm only one person. I can't figure everything out. I'm more like I forget everything, you know? So if there's a part I'm leaving out and you're like, you didn't tell us how to do that, then just let me know. So I'm going to use, like I said at the very beginning, the split stitch for all of the stems that we're doing. So I'm going to use it for this one, and for this one. I'm just going to show you a little bit more of this because we've already done this before. You already know how to do this. And I want to show you some extra little things. Do you know what I mean? That you can add. And it's using stitches that we've already learned before. So it's not like we're learning something totally new and crazy. It's just a different way, you know? You could also do a split stitch for everything else and then a satin stitch for the fill if you wanted. If you wanted it to look a bit smooth in the middle. Are you going to use the blue or purple for any details? Yes, I think I will, because I feel like it will really like tie things together, you know? Because purple is such like an eye-catching color, you have to be a little bit careful and not just like throw it in everywhere, because it can look a little bit like when people just like throw glitter on things. Do you know what I mean? When they're just like, oh, we'll just put that there. So yeah, make it look a little bit intentional where you put it. But yeah, I want to add some, and it could just be like some little purple French knots maybe, like in the corner. Show the people, you know, in the corner here. Or some more little of these flowers up here at the top. You know, you could put another one right there, and that would look quite nice. So and just as a reminder, tomorrow I have to go to the doctors again. And I have to get my blood drawn tomorrow. That's me throwing up in my mouth. It really creeps me out. I don't know why. But I'm gonna go get it done. I'm determined not to cry and not to pass out. I didn't do it last time. I almost passed out last time, but I didn't cry. So, baby steps, right? But yeah, so wish me luck for that. And the live will be later tomorrow. And tomorrow's live is going to be how to finish your hoop. So you do not have to have your whole hoop finished by tomorrow. Just remember that, okay? Don't stress out and like really try and, you know, sort it tonight. Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, Veronica's getting bloods done tomorrow in the morning too. Mine's at 9:45. I'll be thinking of you. And you think of me and I'll think of you. And then we can like, with our powers combined, we can get through it. Oh my gosh, I'm such a dork. Oh, I just can't do it. Do you know what I mean? It just makes me freak out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to show you the areas and where we could add these little things. And then on the practice hoop, I'm going to show you 8:30. I have to put my numbing cream on an hour beforehand. So I'm always like, mine's at 9:45. So I have to put mine on at like 8:45, 8:30. And hopefully, it'll work. Okay, so some areas where you might want to put some extra things. It's pretty much anywhere that there's a space between the objects. So you want to have a good mix of putting some extra things in if you want to. It's not mandatory. And not putting too much in. Okay, because remember, these are just little extra things. All right. So some key areas I would look for is up here, because there's a bit of space up here in between these, like that. So maybe you could put a little leaf coming down like that. And don't be afraid to actually stitch over things that we've already stitched. So if you wanted to put a little leaf here and have it overlap the pumpkin just a little bit, do it. It'd be cute. Or you can kind of push it behind. So draw it in a way that it's behind, you know? Like that. Oh, the swirly bits back into the pumpkin. That's right, because I didn't actually do that. Okay, so what I would do for that, it's going to have to be a freehand, or you can draw on the threads if you cover it up completely. And I would do probably, it depends on what color you want to use. That would kind of depend on the stitch. If you've got a real dark color, then you can just do a regular back stitch. If you want to do something a little bit lighter, then I would probably do a stem stitch, because that way it will cover all of your stitch marks. I suppose we could do that real quick, actually. I need another strand. Is 4 too much? You should be able to get it through. I feel like 4 is probably going to be too much. But we'll just see. So we've got one on the grapes here. And it kind of goes a little loop-de-loop like that. So remember, darker colors will make one continuous line, okay? Or you can use a split stitch if you really want to have them, you know, like blend together. I would go straight up through your threads and straight down. So don't come up on an angle like this. Can you see that? I'm going to try and come straight up like that. I knew there was something I was forgetting. Thank you so much for that. Try and keep your stitches small as well, because the smaller the stitch, the more fluid it will look. I'm using 4 strands. It's probably 3 probably would have been better. And then don't forget at the very end, if you used the heat erasable Pilot friction pen, it does erase with heat. So I would go for a blow dryer. If you use an iron, put something over top, like a spare piece of cotton or something like that, because it doesn't melt your threads because they're cotton. So if your threads are getting melted, then you've got a problem. But what happens is they tend to get a little bit of like a shine to them in like a weird way. It's not melty. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But I would put like a tea towel or some extra cotton fabric over top. And you can do the iron that way. Not hard, because things like French knots will get really pushed down. And we don't want that. That's quite cute, isn't it? I like that. So yeah, if you want to add some more on the top of there, on each side, you can do that. Another place for small details. Okay, so I've said here, I've said down here, here, over here. You can do down here at the bottom if you want to. Poke it out from there. There's all kinds of places, really. And if you want to, you can just fill them with some French knots, you know? Put a couple little French knots in there. You're good to go. So some extra things. Where did that piece go? Not on the floor. Can't be bending over these days, you know? I actually went to Next and found some really nice boots. And do you know why I bought them? Because they're slip-on. Ugh. All my shoes are tie shoes. You have to tie them up like shoelaces, you know? And I was like, I can't be doing this anymore. Nope, can't be doing that. So yeah, I have some slip-on winter boots. They were a bit spenny, but I can use them after as well. Okay, so some typical things that I like to do for extras. I know we're already at 44 minutes, okay? So I don't want to be too quick, but I do want to show you these things. Is super simple straight stitches, okay? So you've got one, and then you put all the other stitches in the same hole or just below. Okay, these are quite fun. You can make them wider or thinner. It's completely up to you. So you can make them like this, if you have like a bigger space to fill. So they kind of fan out a bit more. The old Lazy Daisy detached chain stitch. Put 2 of them bad boys together. So you've got one loop. You can do one on each side. You can do one big one and one small one. These are really great for filler things, okay? Just to add a little bit of like flourish to stuff. I don't really feel like I need to stitch them because I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about at this point, you know? But I suppose I could do like 1 or 2. It's quick anyways. So yeah, you've got your 1 long stitch in the middle. Because they look a little bit. And you put all of them through the same hole or just below. So you want them to kind of look like they're one of those spiky little bushes, you know? Obviously, it won't look as good in brown as it would in like green or like a pretty color. But those are always fun. They add a little bit of pizzazz, okay? And then the other one is this detached chain stitch situation. So these all go down in the same, the points all go down in the same hole or just below. And they're quite a fun little thing to add because they can go in a lot of different places. So obviously these would be best where there's a small area here and there's a bigger area to fill up here. So something like this here, super good for those because it kind of tucks in at the bottom and then it kind of fans out at the top. So either of these would be really great for that. See? If you wanted to just add those. Have you got any other questions? Are we good? I feel like we're good. Obviously, I have a lot more to stitch. I'm sorry I didn't finish it yesterday. I was trying to do the pattern of the month. And then, yeah, sorry. But I'll try and stitch extra today so that maybe I'll catch up. But yeah, that's it. So tomorrow I'll try and do it at 2 o'clock again. I feel like that was a good time. Yeah, tomorrow at 2. I'll confirm later today and see if David needs to do anything, run any errands or whatever. But yeah, tomorrow at 2, and then we will finish then. Okay? Oh, I think he's just opened the door and closed it. But that's it for me. Be sure to tag me with what you've done at the Barmy Fox and tag Anchor Crafts at Anchor Crafting. Use the hashtag the Barmy Fox SAL, hashtag Anchor Crafts, hashtag Anchor Crafting, and Anchor Threads. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.